The day they handed me the Marina, they weren't smiling, they were laughing. Not polite laughter, not congratulatory applause, the kind of laughter meant to shrink a man in front of a room full of suits and crystal glasses. "Congratulations," Victor said, lifting his champagne as if he had just knighted me. "Dock 17 is all yours, the most useless marina on this coast." The board clapped. Someone muttered, "At least he won't interfere with real business now." I stood there, feeling their pity wrap around me like chains, and I smiled. Because none of them knew what slept beneath that water. Dock 17 was a decaying stretch of wood and rust, tucked behind the glamorous side of the harbor where million-dollar yachts shimmered under golden lights. My father built it before Harborline became a corporate empire, back when business meant salt in your hair and grease under your nails. After he died, Victor tightened his grip on the company like a python. Contracts shifted, votes disappeared, shares diluted. By the time the will was read, all that remained, for me, was the abandoned marina. Its sentimental value. Victor had said softly, his hand squeezing my shoulder just hard enough to hurt. "Your father would have wanted you to have something personal." The room chuckled again. Personal. That was their word for worthless. The first week at Dock 17, I walked the entire length alone at night. The tide hit the broken pylons with a hollow thud, like a heartbeat echoing through wood. My father used to stand here, staring at the horizon as if calculating secrets in the distance. When I was 17, he told me, "Never judge land by what stands on it. The surface lies. The real story is underneath." I thought he was being philosophical. I didn't realize he was being literal. 2 days after taking ownership, I unlocked his old storage locker. The one Victor insisted was empty. Inside, beneath a coil of diving rope, I found a sealed metal case. Inside that case were survey maps, seismic readings, and coordinates marked in red ink, offshore mineral concentration reports dated 12 years ago, rare earth elements, strategic level deposits, directly beneath Dock 17. Victor hadn't given me a graveyard. He had given me the key to a vault and assumed I'd never find the door. I didn't celebrate. I didn't confront him. I renovated slowly, repaired planks, repainted faded signs, hired 2 retired fishermen everyone else had written off. Let the city think I was stubborn and sentimental. "You're drowning," my sister Aisha told me as invoices piled up. "They wanted you to fail quietly." I nodded. "That's why I have to fail loudly." She didn't understand at first, but I needed rumors. I needed Victor comfortable. I needed him convinced that Dock 17 was dragging me under. Behind the scenes, I moved differently. I mortgaged everything I owned, brought in an independent marine geologist under airtight confidentiality, filed drilling rights through a Shell subsidiary registered outside Victor's network. When the first underwater core sample came up, Dr. Kareem stared at the analysis screen like he was looking at a winning lottery ticket. "This isn't moderate yield," he whispered. "This is strategic dominance." My pulse didn't quicken. I had already known. My father wouldn't have hidden the reports unless they were explosive. Weeks later, investors began making quiet visits at night. Black SUVs parked beside broken fishing boats. Contracts were drafted in dim offices that once sold bait and ice. I didn't sell the marina. I licensed extraction rights in controlled percentages. Enough to fund operations, not enough to lose control. Victor remained blissfully amused. "You still playing harbor master?" he asked over dinner one evening, swirling his wine. "Sell it to me. I'll give you a fair price before it collapses." I met his eyes and let a flicker of exhaustion show. "Maybe you're right," I said. "Maybe I'm in over my head." His smile widened. He thought I was cracking. The morning the first extraction platform surfaced from beneath Dock 17, the skyline changed. Cranes rose like steel giants. Government inspectors arrived. International firms confirmed partnerships. Harborline's stock fluctuated wildly before trading was temporarily halted. Victor stormed down the dock, shoes splashing through salt water he once mocked. "What is this?" he demanded, voice stripped of its polish. "Progress," I answered calmly. He watched as analysts on live financial channels began recalculating valuations. Dock 17, once listed as a depreciating liability, was now the most valuable parcel of controlled coastline in the region. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Board members, regulators, investors demanding explanations. Because while I had secured mineral rights under Dock 17, I had also commissioned independent structural assessments of Harborline's primary luxury harbor, Victor's masterpiece. The findings were devastating. Seabed erosion, long-term instability, risk disclosures never filed, insurance irregularities. He had buried reports years ago to keep expansion moving fast. The same way he buried my father's warnings when he tried to slow operations. The same week my father planned to push for full transparency, he died of a heart attack. Sirens cut through the wind. Coast Guard vessels approached, lights reflecting off the water in fractured red and blue streaks. Victor's expression shifted from fury to something rawer fear. An officer stepped onto the dock with a folder in hand. "Mr. Victor Hale," he called out. "We have documentation regarding offshore compliance violations tied to Harborline's executive leadership." Victor looked at me as if I had betrayed him personally. I held his gaze. "You handed me the useless Marina," I said quietly. I just learned how to use it. The officer continued, flipping a page. There are also reopened inquiries concerning the death of your former partner. The wind seemed to vanish. Even the water felt still. Victor's face lost all color. He took a slow step backward. For a moment, the powerful man who once laughed at me looked smaller than Doc 17 ever did. And as another unmarked vehicle pulled into the lot, doors opening, figures stepping out with sealed envelopes in hand, I realized something unsettling. I had planned the financial collapse. I had engineered the market reversal. I had prepared for regulatory scrutiny. But I hadn't triggered the investigation into my father's death. Someone else had, and they were walking toward us now. The men stepping out of the unmarked vehicle were not Coast Guard. Their suits were darker, their posture heavier, their expressions carved from something colder than law enforcement routine. One of them held a leather portfolio embossed with a federal seal. The other scanned the dock slowly, his eyes pausing on me for a fraction longer than necessary. Victor's voice cracked. "This is ridiculous. You can't just—" "We can," the taller man interrupted calmly. "Mr. Hale, we're reopening a sealed investigation into financial misconduct, environmental suppression reports, and suspicious medical interference connected to the late Mr. Rahman." My father's name sounded different in his mouth. Official. Waited. Victor laughed, but it was hollow now. Medical interference. He had a heart condition. The agent opened the portfolio. "We have evidence suggesting his prescribed medication was altered 3 weeks before his death." The world didn't tilt. It didn't explode. It just narrowed, like my vision had been squeezed through a lens. Ayesha's words from months ago echoed in my head. Dad said he felt worse after the new prescription. Victor turned slowly toward me. "You did this." "I didn't know about this," I replied honestly. That was the first time he saw it, the truth in my eyes. Whatever was happening now wasn't part of my design, and that frightened him more. The agent continued, "We also have testimony from a former Harborline compliance officer who recently came forward. A whistleblower. Someone inside." Victor's composure shattered. "This is corporate warfare. He's behind it." He pointed at me, finger trembling. "He's trying to destroy me?" I didn't move, because destroying him had been the plan, just not like this. The agents requested access to Harborline's executive records. Victor's lawyers were already on their way, but it didn't matter. The damage wasn't legal anymore. It was psychological. Cameras had begun to gather at the Marina entrance. News travels faster than tides. As officials escorted Victor toward the vehicle for questioning, he leaned close enough for only me to hear. "You think you've won," he whispered, venom seeping through each word. "You have no idea how deep this goes?" "I know exactly how deep it goes," I replied quietly. "It goes underwater." His jaw tightened. Then he was gone. The dock fell silent except for the mechanical hum of the extraction platform. Aisha stepped beside me, her face pale. "Did you know?" "No." "But you suspected?" I didn't answer, because suspicion had always lived in the back of my mind, like a shadow I refused to chase. My father was strong, careful, paranoid about contracts, but disciplined about his health. The sudden decline never sat right with me. But grief is a powerful anesthetic. It dulls the need for answers. Until now. That evening, I returned to my father's old office inside the Marina. The air still carried faint traces of engine oil and cedar wood. I opened the metal case again, spreading the survey maps across the desk. Beneath them was something I had overlooked before, a thin envelope taped under the false lining. My hand slowed as I peeled it back. Inside was a single page in my father's handwriting. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't finish what I started." My throat tightened. Victor thinks the minerals are the prize. He doesn't understand leverage. The real value of Dock 17 isn't just what's beneath it, it's what it exposes above it. If anything happens to me, look into the compliance reports from year 12. And don't trust anyone who benefits from silence. Year 12, the same year the mineral surveys were buried. The same year Harborline expanded aggressively. The same year my father first argued with Victor publicly. Footsteps creaked behind me. I didn't turn immediately. "We're closed," I said evenly. "You shouldn't be alone tonight." The voice was unfamiliar. Female, controlled. I turned. She stood in the doorway wearing a charcoal coat, her hair pulled back tightly, eyes sharp with quiet intelligence. "Can I help you?" I asked. "I think I can help you," she replied. She stepped inside and closed the door gently behind her. "My name is Elara Quinn. I was senior compliance analyst at Harborline 12 years ago." My pulse shifted. "You're the whistleblower." She didn't confirm it directly. "I filed an internal report regarding environmental violations and unauthorized offshore testing. It disappeared. 2 weeks later, I was terminated for performance restructuring." "And now?" I asked. "No, Victor Hale is under investigation. And your Marina just became the most strategically valuable asset on the coast." She studied the papers on the desk. Her gaze paused on my father's handwriting. He knew. She said softly, "Yes, boss." She walked closer, lowering her voice. "Your father requested a private meeting with me the night before he died." My breath stilled. He believed someone inside Harborline was manipulating not just financial disclosures, but regulatory filings tied to medical insurance coverage for executive partners. Medical insurance coverage. A slow, cold realization crept through me. If medication was altered, she continued carefully, it would have required access, corporate-level access. Victor had access, but so did others, board members, executives. Anyone who stood to lose everything if my father exposed the truth. Why come to me now? I asked. Because Victor isn't the top of this structure, she replied. The room felt smaller. He's ruthless, she continued. But he answers to investors you haven't seen yet. International ones. The mineral deposit beneath Dock 17 isn't just profitable, it's strategic. Defense contracts, energy monopolies, supply chain leverage, and they knew, I asked. They suspected. Victor tried to secure exclusive extraction quietly. Your father objected. Silence swallowed the office. You think they killed him? I said. I think, she replied carefully, that when powerful interests feel threatened, accidents become convenient. Outside, the extraction platform lights reflected off the water like distant stars. Everything I had built over the past months, the financial trap, the stock reversal, the legal exposure, had been focused on Victor. But what if he wasn't the architect? What if he was just the visible villain? Lara stepped closer. If this investigation goes where I think it will, you won't just be fighting for revenge anymore. You'll be fighting for control of something governments will want to influence. I'm not afraid of influence, I said. You should be? Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and the color drained from her face. What? I demanded. They froze your subsidiary accounts, she said quietly. All of them. That's impossible. It's already done. My phone vibrated seconds later. Emergency regulatory review. Asset hold pending national interest assessment. National interest. They weren't just investigating Victor. They were containing me. A distant helicopter sound began to grow louder overhead. Elara moved toward the window slowly. You licensed extraction rights, didn't you? Yes. To multiple international firms? Yes. She exhaled slowly. You just triggered geopolitical attention. The helicopter spotlight cut across Dock 17, bathing the old wooden planks in blinding white light. This wasn't about a marina anymore. It wasn't even about revenge. Footsteps echoed outside, not Coast Guard this time. Different uniforms. Federal insignias I didn't immediately recognize. A loud knock hit the office door. Mr. Rahman, a firm voice called out. We need to speak with you regarding national security implications tied to offshore mineral rights. Elara looked at me. This is bigger than Victor, she whispered. I folded my father's letter carefully and slipped it into my jacket. The knock came again, harder this time. For months, I believed Dock 17 was my weapon. Now I was starting to understand something terrifying. I might have just uncovered a war. The third knock didn't wait for permission. The door opened with controlled force, not aggression, the kind that comes from authority that doesn't need to shout. 3 officials entered. No raised voices, no drawn weapons, just certainty. The man in front held up identification briefly. Federal Strategic Resources Division. Strategic, not environmental, not financial, strategic. You've moved very quickly, Mr. Rahman, he continued, scanning the room, eyes lingering on the maps. Licensing offshore rare earth extraction to multiple foreign entities without federal clearance. It's private property, I replied evenly. He gave me a thin smile. Nothing involving defense-grade minerals is ever just private. Elara stepped slightly behind me, silent now. We're placing a temporary federal hold on all extraction activity, the official said, until a joint review determines national impact. And if I refuse, I asked. He didn't blink. You won't. The helicopter above shifted position, its blades chopping the air like a warning. I felt it then, the shift in battlefield. Victor had been ego, this was infrastructure. Am I under arrest? I asked. No. Am I being charged? Not at this time. Then Dock 17 remains mine. His eyes narrowed slightly. Ownership and control are different concepts. The words hung in the air. They weren't here to take me in. They were here to measure me, to decide whether I was a liability or an asset. One of the agent's phones buzzed. He glanced at it, then leaned toward his superior, whispering something low and urgent. The lead official's gaze sharpened. Change of plans, he muttered. Before I could ask what that meant, my own phone vibrated violently in my pocket. Aisha, I answered instantly. What is it? Her voice was shaking. There are men at Dad's old house. I slid through my spine. What men? They showed identification. Corporate security, harbor line. They have a warrant to retrieve archived company materials. They're inside. I looked at Elara. Year 12 compliance reports. My father's files. Don't let them take anything, I said. I can't stop them. The line crackled, then cut. The federal official was watching me carefully now. You seem distracted, he said calmly. Corporate security is raiding my father's house, I replied. Is that part of your operation too? His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. That wouldn't be authorized by us. Which meant someone else had moved. Victor might have been detained, but whoever stood behind him was still operating. And they were erasing history. Elara stepped forward. They're cleaning exposure, shh, she said quietly. If the medication trail connects to corporate insurance filings, they'll eliminate anything tying year 12 to altered records. The official's head turned toward her. And you are. She held his gaze without flinching. Someone who knows this isn't about minerals anymore. Silence pressed down. The official studied us both, recalculating. Then his phone buzzed. This time, he answered. Yes. Pause. Confirmed. Another pause. His jaw tightened. When? He lowered the phone slowly. Mixed a ramen, he said carefully. Victor Hale collapsed during questioning. The air thinned. Collapsed how? I asked. Cardiac arrest. The words hit like a controlled detonation. Elara's eyes widened. That's too convenient, he agreed. The official didn't disagree. He added, for now, the same phrase that once described my father. Victor had secrets, and someone had just ensured he might never speak them. The pieces were aligning too cleanly. Doc 17. The mineral deposit, year 12 suppression, medical interference. Now Victor silenced at the edge of testimony. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was containment. The helicopter shifted again, spotlight cutting across the extraction platform like an interrogation lamp. Shut it down? The official ordered one of his agents. Within minutes, the hum of machinery faded. Doc 17 fell eerily quiet. He turned back to me. You've stepped into a space most private citizens never see. I suggest you tread carefully. I didn't step into it, I replied. It was built under me. He held my gaze for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he said, if you receive any threats, direct or indirect, you contact this number. He slid a card across the desk. Not public contact. Direct line. That meant something. You think I'm in danger? I said. I think, he replied slowly, that leverage attracts pressure. They left as calmly as they arrived. The helicopter pulled away. The doc was silent again. But the silence was different now. Javier. Alara tried to silence Victor. Yes. Which means he wasn't the top. No, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered without speaking. A calm male voice filled my ear. Cultured? Measured. You've made impressive progress, Mr. Rahman. I didn't respond. Victor was ambitious. He forgot who facilitated that ambition. So here it was. Who is this? I asked a concerned stakeholder. You raided my father's house. A soft chuckle. Documents disappear. It's unfortunate. And Victor, a pause. Mr. Hale's health is regrettable. My hand tightened around the phone. You killed my father. Another pause, longer this time. No, the voice said carefully. Your father was warned. He insisted on transparency, and that was unacceptable. Strategic industries cannot afford unpredictability. Strategic industries, the same phrase the federal official implied. You think you can scare me? I asked. I think you misunderstand your position. My position? You control a resource nations require. You licensed it impulsively. That creates instability. I created competition. You created attention. The calmness in his tone was more chilling than anger. You have two options, he continued. Cooperate, consolidate extraction under aligned oversight. Or continue your crusade and risk becoming irrelevant. There it was. Not prison, not lawsuits. Erasure, like my father. You assume I care about survival? I said quietly. I assume you care about your sister? My heartbeat slowed, controlled, measured. You're threatening her. I'm advising you. The line went dead. The doc felt colder. Alara watched my face. Who was it? Not Victor. She nodded once. Then we're dealing with investors. International. Likely? I looked out at the dark water beneath Dock 17. For months, I thought the treasure underwater was minerals. But that wasn't the real power. The real power was leverage. And now multiple forces wanted control of it. Aisha called back. They left, she said breathlessly. They took Dad's old filing cabinet. But I hid some documents weeks ago, the ones labeled year 12. They're safe. Relief flickered through me. Good, I said softly. But even as I spoke, headlights appeared at the far end of the Marina road. Not federal, not Coast Guard. Black SUVs, no markings. Elara saw them too. They don't look official, she murmured. They stopped just outside the dock entrance. Doors opened in synchronized motion. Men stepped out, not rushing, not hiding. Confident, prepared. One of them looked directly at me, like he already knew exactly who I was. The phone in my hand buzzed again, same unknown number. I answered slowly. You chose defiance, the calm voice said. I watched as the men began walking down the wooden planks of Dock 17. This doesn't end the way you think, he continued. Behind me, the extraction platform lights flickered, then shut off completely. The entire marina fell into darkness. Only the moon reflecting off black water remained. The footsteps were getting closer. And for the first time since I accepted Doc 17, I realized I wasn't the one setting the trap anymore. The footsteps stopped 10 feet away from me, 5 men. Tailored suits. No visible weapons. The kind of people who didn't need to display power because they were used to owning it. The one in front gave a small nod, almost respectful. Mr. Rahman. I didn't move. If you're here to negotiate, you chose a dramatic entrance. We prefer clarity, he replied. His voice matched the one from the phone. Calm, controlled, educated, and clarity requires privacy. Elara shifted beside me, tense but steady. You shut down my power grid, I said. That's not privacy. That's intimidation. A demonstration, he corrected. Of what? That we can reach you without permission. The tide moved slowly beneath the dock, dark and patient. You silenced Victor, I said flatly. He silenced himself. The man replied, stress is a fragile thing. And my father. A pause, longer this time. Your father was a principled man, he said. Principled men sometimes force irreversible decisions. My jaw tightened. So you admit it. I admit, he said evenly, that your father threatened to destabilize a supply chain critical to national defense partnerships across 3 continents. You mean he refused to let you monopolize it? He gave the faintest smile. Words are flexible. The men behind him spread subtly, not aggressively, but strategically, blocking exits, measuring distance. You've grown impressive in a short time, he continued. The market reversal, the regulatory triggers, the exposure of Harborline's instability. Efficient. You underestimated me? No, he said softly. We underestimated how quickly grief turns into ambition. That hit deeper than I expected. I'm not ambitious, I said quietly. I'm deliberate. Then let's be deliberate together. He gestured toward the dark water. Consolidate your extraction licenses under our oversight. We provide protection, stability, access to channels you don't even know exist. You retain public ownership. We retain operational influence. And if I refuse, his eyes hardened for the first time. Then Doc 17 becomes a liability rather than an asset. Environmental injunctions, national security seizure, criminal investigations, your sister's safety becoming uncertain. The threat landed cleanly, not shouted, not emotional, just factual. Elora stepped forward. You think coercion builds loyalty. He looked at her briefly. Loyalty is irrelevant. Alignment is what matters. I stared at the water. My father's words echoed again. The real value isn't what's beneath. It's what it exposes above. For months, I thought revenge meant crushing Victor. Then I thought it meant exposing corruption. Now I understood something larger. Revenge wasn't destruction, it was leverage. You want alignment? I said calmly. Yes. Then here's my counteroffer. His eyebrow lifted slightly. I consolidate nothing, I continued. Instead, I make everything public. A flicker of irritation crossed his face. You won't. Within the hour, I said, pulling my phone from my pocket, or digital package containing mineral reports, suppressed compliance files, medical discrepancies, and international licensing communications will be released to investigative journalists across 4 countries. He didn't blink, but the men behind him shifted subtly. You're bluffing, he said. I don't bluff. Elora looked at me sharply. I held his gaze. You see, I continued, you think power lives in secrecy. It doesn't. It lives in exposure. If I go down, you don't get Doc 17, you don't get controlled extraction, you get congressional hearings, international probes, defense contract audits, headlines you cannot contain, silence. Only water against wood. You'd burn the asset you fought to control, he asked. I'd burn the monopoly. I corrected. He studied me now not as a threat, as a variable. Mutually assured destruction, he murmured. Mutually assured transparency. His jaw tightened. You're young, he said quietly. You don't understand the scale of what you're interfering with. I understand scale perfectly, I replied. You killed my father to protect it. Another long pause. Then, unexpectedly, he sighed. Your father wasn't killed, he said. Words given a choice. The words hit differently. What choice? To step aside, to allow consolidation quietly, to retire comfortably. He refused. And so you altered his medication. His gaze didn't waver. We adjusted a variable. My vision tunneled for a moment. Rage burned hot and blinding. But I didn't let it show, because that was what he expected. You think I'm emotional? I said softly. That'll make a mistake. He didn't respond. I already triggered the release. I continued. That made him blink. 3 minutes ago, Elora's eyes widened. Then she understood. The backup system I installed weeks earlier. Dead man encryption tied to biometric stress markers. If my heart rate spiked beyond a certain threshold, or if I manually confirmed risk, the data would distribute automatically. His phone buzzed. Then another man's phone buzzed. Simultaneously, he didn't check it immediately. That told me enough. You reckless? One of the men behind him began. He silenced him with a subtle hand gesture. Finally, he removed his phone and glanced at the screen. For the first time, the calm fractured, just slightly. National Investigative Consortium. He read quietly. Simultaneous leak. He looked up at me. You've escalated beyond containment. Good. Helicopter sounds returned in the distance. Not one, several. Sirens far off. News vans likely already moving. He calculated quickly. I could see it in his eyes. If he touched me now, it would confirm everything. If he retreated, he lost control of the narrative. You've made yourself untouchable, he said quietly. No, I replied, I made you visible. The helicopters grew louder. Spotlights began scanning the coastline again. This time not just federal. Media, authorities, oversight, pressure from every direction. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You understand what happens next, don't you? Yes? You won't control this resource. I never wanted to control it alone. He studied me one final time. You're not your father, he said. I know, I replied. I'm worse. For a brief second, something almost like respect flickered across his expression. Then he stepped back. The men behind him withdrew in synchronized silence. Black SUVs retreated down the road just as flashing lights began filling the Marina entrance. Within minutes, Doc 17 was swarming. Federal agents, environmental regulators, journalists shouting questions, cameras capturing every angle. Elora exhaled slowly beside me. You just detonated an industry, she whispered. No, I said, watching the chaos unfold. I detonated secrecy. My phone buzzed again. Ayesha, are you safe? She asked. Yes, they're talking about you on every channel. I know. Was this the plan? I looked at the water beneath Dock 17, dark, endless, no longer hitting. No, I said honestly. But it's the right ending. The extraction platform lights flickered back on as backup generators engaged, not as a symbol of dominance, but of transition. Dock 17 was no longer a private weapon. It was public leverage. Victor would survive or he wouldn't. The investors would scramble to contain fallout. Governments would step in. Investigations would unfold slowly and painfully. But one thing was certain. No one would ever call this Marina useless again. And as cameras focused on me, the inexperienced heir, who had turned humiliation into exposure, I felt something unexpected. Not victory, not satisfaction, control. Because revenge isn't about destroying your enemy. It's about forcing them to live in the world they tried to hide, and now the entire world was watching. Dock 17 wasn't the treasure. It was the trigger, and I had just pulled it.